Hey, I'm Rahle. I'm the founder of Bija, which is a business revolving around sowing the seeds of well-being. I am a well-being guide and yoga teacher, and I work with women over 40 to say yes to themselves and lead more fulfilling, more integrated lives. This is the Prosperity Show with Prosper Taruvinga, and we covered all sorts of interesting topics, but from my origins in Africa, like his in Cape Town, to my big immigration across the seas and continents and a million time zones to New Zealand, and the background of design and how that informs my coaching and well-being philosophy, and what Bija actually means and how you can get involved. So keep tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another transformative episode on the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're diving into the world of well-being with the incredible Rahle. Now, Rahle, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm gonna have to keep reminding myself because I almost pronounced your name in the South African accent there, or in the way it's supposed to be pronounced. So let's hope that I'm not gonna mix both the spelling and the actual pronunciation there. But I really appreciate having you on the call today. Now, for those that are meeting Rahle for the very first time, she's a well-being guide and a yoga teacher who's dedicated her life to helping women over 40 to juggle family, life, work, and everything else in between. And she's helping them do that without losing themselves in the process. You know what happens. Everybody says life begins at 40, but so does everything else that comes along with it. So Rahle is there to be the guide for those women 40 and above. And she's also the founder of Bija, a movement that actually plants the seeds of small, sustainable changes for big life altering transformation. So her work bridges the gap between guilt and self-care. So whenever you find yourself having to contemplate whether to take care of yourself or look after your kids, I think Rahle has a few of the answers that so many people and so many women, so to speak, find themselves feeling guilty about. And she's literally teaching women to say yes to themselves with grace, humor, and mindfulness. But obviously Rahle's journey, to where she is now, even though she's on holiday, and she's given us this wonderful opportunity to have a chat with her, it hasn't been this straightforward. It's been a tale of reinvention, resilience, and rediscovering her own purpose. So from what she was doing in the past, she was actually leading a successful career as an interactive designer in Cape Town to now navigating a new life and a career and globetrotting in New Zealand. Rahle has also faced, her own fair share of imposter syndrome, personal setbacks, and a serious life-altering moments that have shaped her mission. Now, it's always fun when I get people from South Africa, or from Africa, so to speak, on the show, but they're actually doing, things in the world there. It just really, tells a tale of the resilience that we as a people have. And today she is going to be sharing those invisible lessons that she's shared with others along the way, or she's also learned along the way, which are meant to inspire us to, first of all, prioritize our well-being in a world that almost demands too much from us. I mean, the phones, the Netflix, the chilling, everything just wants a piece of us. And she's here to set that straight. So I recommend that you stick around for a little bit for what we're about to embark on. And I don't want you to miss on the wisdom that she's about to drop. Now, Riley, I could go on and talk about, everything else that is part of your journey and everything, else, but it defeats the whole purpose of having you on the show today. Tell us a little bit about your journey, especially the part when you were in the world of interactive design.
Thank you, Prosper. Just one little correction. It gets everybody every time. It's not Rahle. The E is pronounced like an A, so it's Rahle.
Right, right.
And
Uh,
yeah, so my name is always an icebreaker because it's not pronounced at all how you spell it. But anyway,
mm,
um, in Cape Town for 16 years, my partner and I ran an interactive company called Pixel Project, and we worked in many sectors during that time, mostly working on museums, doing interactive installations there, everything from small touch screens to larger, bigger interactive displays and interactive table. And we also did a lot of work for brand activations for events. And we had a lot of international clients, which meant we got to travel and work overseas and in Europe, Dubai. And it was pretty exciting time. And then at some point, we decided to think about a different future and decided to move to New Zealand. We had taken off a few months to travel. We were working and traveling. And when we when we got to New Zealand after about 4 days in Auckland, I turned around to my partner. I'm like, "Why don't we move here?" And he was like, "What?" So a year and a half later, and a lot of paperwork and tears and temper tantrums and questioning why are we leaving Cape Town, we made the big move across a lot of time zones to Auckland, to New Zealand.
Absolutely, rather. That is absolutely, a dream right there. But Cape Town is also a dream for a lot of people. I mean, so many people go across to the Table Mountain, to the beaches
Yeah.
there, even go to see the penguins in Cape Town, as it is very, very touristy, and things of that nature. What would you want to leave paradise, for?
Oh, Prosper, I hear you. We had already submitted our papers, made the decision. I remember sitting in my lounge in my beautiful home, which was like 5 minute drive from the sea, running my own business. And I remember thinking, what are we doing? Like, I love Cape Town. I love Cape Town. To me, it is the most beautiful place in the whole wide world. And I think I decided, okay, leaving is going to be hard. Staying is going to be hard. We're going to choose our hard. And if we made this beautiful life here, we can make a beautiful life anyway. And then in there, I made the commitment that no matter how hard immigration got, and it's still hard. 5.5 years later, it's not over. Getting to a place is really half the journey. But Cape Town will always have a very special place in my soul. It was where I was born. I didn't grow up there. But yeah, I guess now I'm just going to have to be a tourist in my own hometown when I go back.
Oh, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. But obviously, sometimes you see, I was just in Thailand a month or so ago, and I was just looking at the people experiencing their environment. To us, that was like paradise, and that was like we flew 9 hours to get here. Yet these guys are not even appreciating it. They're just thinking, oh, it's too hot. They just want to go home, and I don't know what they want to do. So I can only imagine if you leave in the environment, you might not actually see, the actual beauty that comes along with it. I'm not saying you didn't, but for so many people, it just becomes normal, and stuff. But what was the thing that appealed to you, because you landed in Auckland and you're like, oh, we got to stay here?
um, I think it was a combination of that there's a lot of great outdoor adventures in New Zealand, and I love being outside. And interestingly enough, I loved the design of things everywhere we went, whether it was local art or design of restaurants or just the visual language that we came across was really beautiful. And the interesting thing is, we hadn't even left Auckland, and I had already decided that we should think about moving there. And uh, I love the food. Food is really important. important to me. I love good food, and the food in Auckland is really, really delicious. And I just kind of figured that New Zealand seemed to have a lot of interesting opportunities, and it was a small country.
Mm.
South Africa, it's on a large continent, but it's a pretty big population, and it is quite spread out in places. And so, New Zealand, I think probably by now is well over 5 million people. And just the Western Cape, where Cape Town is, the province where Cape Town is well over 5 million people. So Auckland is probably about 2 million now. So it's a radically smaller country. And I thought that that would be interesting to experience for a change.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, you would have been exposed to the New Zealand guys when they were playing with the South African rugby team, and maybe you liked the haka more than the Springbok dance or the chant there. But obviously, in life, we're obviously supposed to elevate and grow in stature, and maybe this would have been part of your growth. But the one thing that you mentioned that caught my attention is you loved the design of the place that you were coming into, but your job actually entailed at that particular moment for you to actually see those designs and make them and share them with other people. Just walk us through what your day to day would look like in the interactive design sort of space.
Um, so an interaction designer, most people are like, an into what? So the process starts off with ideation or coming up with the idea. So whether the technology has already been decided on, for example, if it's a touch screen or if it's an installation at a trade show for travel, whatever it is, the client will have some sort of idea, and then we would take it back and then come up with what the user journey would be, what is the content that they would engage with. Either that content would be existing, it would be videos or images or text or animations, or we would have to create them. So some of the many hats that I would wear as an interaction designer would be concept developer, content creator, curator. If the content was existing, clients would give you everything and it would be like, this, not that, some of this, some of that. And then putting it all together in an interface called interface design, whether it's on a screen, like I said, or if it's an interactive projection responding to your gestures. And then there would be some sort of motion, movement. And then I always said that the best designs that I did was where there was no barrier, where people would just start interacting with them without even realizing that there was an interface that they would be going through to access the information. And interestingly enough, my first job when I moved to New Zealand was one of my first job projects that I worked on was to do all the interfaces for the All Blacks experience, which is at Star City. And so the irony is, a South African new immigrant working on something as epic as the All Blacks, and B, I don't really know much about rugby. So but it was an incredible project to work on because it was just so huge, and it just has so many people coming through it. And then once it was up and running, one of the big important things about interaction design is always testing what you've created so that you know how it feels, so that you can make any tweaks. And so after it was installed, the team and we went through and experienced it. And if people haven't been to it and they're living in Auckland, I highly recommend it, because even if you're not into rugby, even if you're not into sports, it's such a beautiful look at the culture behind rugby in New Zealand and the information around it. It's, I was really wowed. And they usually have like an ex-rugby player, ex-All Black that would guide you through it as well. So it was quite an epic experience, quite a big honor to be involved in a project like that as soon as I moved here.
Absolutely. Now it makes sense why you didn't want to go back. I mean, if you're just getting into the country and you get one of the biggest projects anyone would wish for, then you'd be like, you know what? I could stick around for a little bit more. But what you're talking about is I've been to places where there's a plant garden, which basically seemingly is just plants. But if you move your hands, there's music that
Oh,
starts
yeah.
playing from that. Is that the kind of cool stuff that you do? Like you go woo, woo, and
Yep, it's
or
part of it.
Yeah, or if you go into some sort of a space where you maybe ride a bike and then maybe a hologram comes out and it's you making that. Is that what? Because I want people to have an understanding of the kind of cool experiences that they come across, that is the work of your hands.
Yeah, it could be. It could be one of the biggest things that we did was an interactive table at Lily's Leaf. Now, Lily's Leaf Farm is really famous because that's where Nelson Mandela hid before he was arrested.
Yes.
And Nick Walpe, I think he's passed away by now. It's one of the sons of the sort of main guys that were part of the struggle. We did a lot of installations there. So some of the original installations at that table was you'd move a device around and it would trigger different points on the table. There was a touch screens there. So, my partner, I always used to say we were pinky in the brain because I'd make it look pretty and he would make it work. So I'm not very technical, but I love content and I love design, and he's just amazing bringing technology to life. So yeah, like whether it was moving your hand and the projection would react to that, or it's all those sorts of things, as simple as a touch screen and an interactive motion, all of that.
Absolutely. This just all sounds like a dream. Why would you leave that there?
Well, it's a good question. When after about 6 months after we moved to New Zealand, just over 6 months, COVID hit. And so it was quite a rude awakening. We get to this beautiful new country and just started my new job at that company. And then COVID hit, and that was a hard 2 years trying to integrate into a new culture. But, you're in your home all the time, most of the time. And once we got cleared out of COVID and the borders started opening, the thing that I've always been passionate about well-being. I've always been passionate. I've been teaching yoga now for over 10 years, and I've probably been doing yoga for, I don't know, maybe 20. But I've always been on the self-development path. I've always been on a path of making sure that I'm looking after my health mentally, physically as much as I can. Sometimes some phases of life work better than others. And I just noticed how so many women really struggled with, and I don't want to call it work-life balance because that'll set me off on a whole other tangent, but just the sort of basics. It's when you love something and you're passionate about it, it's not really work to you. And I could just notice things that they weren't integrating into their day-to-day realities that would make such a world of difference to help them feel better, to live better. And I had the seed of an idea to start Bija, and I asked my partner if he would be my parachute so I could take this leap of faith and see how the seed could spread. And not too sure what it would look like. I had some ideas, and he said yes because he's amazing. And so Bija was born, basically.
Congratulations. I mean, obviously, the pandemic really, really put a lot of things into perspective because the kind of work that you're doing now that you've mentioned it has to and needs to operate in a space where, masses and people need to convene. And if there's not that, then that means the demand for your work dwindles. Whereas you now moved on not to interact with the environment but to help people to interact with their own selves, and that
Mm,
that is a whole different
yes.
interactive design that you've come up with. What was it like when you first ventured into this, and obviously setting up and saying this is now my new line of work?
Oh, it still is pretty terrifying. I think there's a lot of information and people online out there that misrepresent how hard it is to start something, especially on your own. When we started our previous business, there were two of us, and I have not been on social media for 11 years, so no Facebook, no Instagram, and even barely on LinkedIn. When we immigrated, I reactivated my account, just to try and network and get to know some people locally. And so when I started Bija, so many people are like, oh, you better get onto Instagram and you better get onto Facebook. And I'm like, no. And they're like, how can you start a business in this day and age not being on social media? And I had a lot of shame. I had a lot of people sort of shame me for that. And I was like, because the people that I really need to help, I don't want to encourage them to be somewhere that's probably affecting their mental health. I'm a little bit of a Luddite at heart. I'm not anti-technology and progress. I'm just anti the abuse of technology. And I think that sometimes we can really do that to ourselves. So I really had this idea of Bija, and I had sort of ideas of who I wanted to work with. And you don't really know the path that you're going to explore until you start going along the path. And that's why I call myself a well-being guide and not a coach. Because you sort of start off your journey and you want to get to a certain place, but along the way, if you're hiking, maybe the bridge has been washed out. What do you do then? So it's about arming yourself or equipping yourself with specific things that can help you traverse those chasms of difficult times in your life. So I think for me, it's still about growing. It's still about learning, still about reaching people. And I think it's the well-being word can be a little bit overused because I think people are like, I don't need to pay for well-being. I don't have time for well-being. I'm so slammed for time. I'm so stressed. I'm so busy, later. Like once this thing happens, then I can. And so I totally get that. And I just feel like it's a little bit of education and a little bit of care that I try and sprinkle with people. And yeah, so far the results have been pretty good.
Absolutely. And I commend you for basically not wanting to engage or fall to the hype of social media. I will tell you, I am 5 years in with basically no Facebook, no Instagram, and I feel very, very, even though this is part of my work to literally be on the social media. I'm actually writing a book, Rahle, about how you need to own your media and not necessarily be beholden to the algorithms that are out there. So yeah, when I hear somebody doing that, I'm just like, wow, it's something else. But do you reckon that your skepticism on social media and connecting with sort of like the outside world stems from you knowing exactly what technology can do as somebody who was in interactive design? Because you did mention that you wanted people to interact without an interface, and people wouldn't actually know that certain things are targeted at them without them realizing, and that could be actually happening with the social media, and people don't quite realize that that's the case.
Yeah, it's that. Particularly as somebody that was in digital and technology right in the beginning of the internet. I mean, when I, when I was at college, the only internet we had was a dial-up modem in the staff room.
That internet mating call, yeah.
Exactly. I think there are birds in Australia that sound pretty similar, right? So I think like knowing how you can be controlled through software is one thing, but also my own journey of being addicted to Instagram and Facebook and seeing how it affected my mental health is what got me off those platforms. The invasion of privacy, even though you've agreed to be on a platform, I was still indignant when my privacy got breached, when I was tagged in photos without my permission, or people were commenting on things without me knowing that I was involved in them. And then I just sort of thought, I don't feel for this anymore, and then Instagram, it was just an unhealthy obsession that I had with it. And so I made the decision to cut all those ties. And I think that it's also about choosing, like, we know that we should be more selective with what we eat. And we know that too much sugar is not good and we shouldn't be eating big meals before bed, all those sort of things. But we're not as discerning always about the information that we take in. And I definitely think that this idea of doom scrolling pays into this feeling of overwhelm that people feel. Because if you think about, if you see an incident on the news, that's terrible. It creates an emotional trigger in you, either outrage or sadness or anger, whatever that is, right? And if it's on the news, it has like usually a good 5-10 minutes around it. When you're doom scrolling and there's somebody's sad story about they lost their son, or somebody's just got a bad diagnosis, or yay, somebody's got a promotion, and it's like constant scrolling through all these different emotions. Like that wreaks havoc with your nervous system. Happy, sad, angry, like over and over and over again. And you have no way to sort of deal with that. You don't know what to do with it. And then you put it down and you're feeling all these sort of things that it's not your life, it's not your information, yet you're having all these responses to it.
Mm.
So it's just something that I don't think a lot of people think about too much.
Absolutely. I quite like how you've really sort of broken it down. I usually put it akin to allowing the garbage truck to come and dump all when it's full inside your living room every single day, and you have to walk over it just so you can go to your mailbox. And it
Oh my
every
gosh.
single week. You can hear that sound tee, 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 tee. And then it's actually coming in. I want people to really understand, and then it goes right in your living room, and they're just dumping all the gunk, everything that you put in your bin plus your neighbors. And you're feasting on that.
But the rubbish truck is your neighbor's random stuff. The algorithm is highly curated to feed you more of the stuff that you're either looking for or that's creating strong emotions in you. So it's manipulating you. Whereas the rubbish truck is really just random junk, right?
Right. So
And
Riley,
like,
we've got three trucks that come in our street. There's the general waste, then there's the recycling one, and then there's a new one for bottles only. All right. So you can imagine
ah,
maybe your inclination is just bottles, and the bottle truck is coming all the way in the living room, and you have to climb through those bottles every single
chucking
day.
them, going through them.
You go to your
This
mailbox.
no, this no.
No, no.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, this is fun and games and everything. But can you maybe tell us about the core philosophy behind Bija and how it actually reflects in maybe your personal experiences?
So Bija, Bija means seed in Sanskrit. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been doing yoga for well over 20 years. And when I first started reading the philosophy behind yoga, it really captivated me. I found it really interesting because what's different to Eastern philosophy to Western philosophy is that it's a very practical um, pathway. It's basically like, here's a pathway for you to feel your best, think your best, go and do it, as opposed to delving too much deep into ideas and philosophies. And when I decided to do my teacher training, obviously we had to really delve into the philosophy, the sutras of Patanjali. A lot of the stuff I read was like, because I come from advertising background, I'm like, this is just marketing rubbish. You do the, what's the connection between doing these yoga poses and all this sort of spiritual wisdom? I'm not getting it. But the more that I got into the practice, the more the wisdom of the philosophy revealed itself to me. And there's a lot of real amazing relevance in the philosophy that stands the test of time. Like humans are not different today as much as we think we are as we were hundreds of years ago. We might have technology, we might have, more or less diseases or bigger buildings or whatever it is, civilization. The human condition, the mind, the heart, the gut, that's still very basic, and we still suffer from the same afflictions, mental afflictions of ignorance and fear and doubt and judgment, positive things of joy, happiness, bliss. And when thinking about how I wanted to take this idea of helping people find ways to feel better forward, I love the idea of the seed because the seed has a lot of symbolism, even in religions, of being the beginning of so many. Like from one seed comes a big, beautiful tree, which grows and flowers and then creates more seeds, which then creates more seeds. It's infinite. The potential is infinite. And you just need to nurture it in the beginning and then let it grow. So there's that aspect of it, of kind of this sort of growing, rippling out idea. So when we're looking after ourselves, we are more able to then look after and show up for the people around us, who will then be able to look up and show up and look after the people around them. So it's this sort of rippling out effect, but it starts with the one, because the one is part of the many and the many is part of the one. And the other side of it, of Bija, small changes that I really love is, as I mentioned, overwhelm. Like we hear that so much, burnout, overwhelm. And when you look at a lot of these programs to feel better or lose weight, there's so much stuff you have to do straight away that's not familiar to you. You've been living this trajectory your whole life, and now you have to change things that are common sense to you, things that are completely different to you. There's no wonder people can't sustain that. And so the idea of Bija is to figure out with people, I call it personalized well-being. Everybody is the same but different. And it's maybe this person needs to, get to bed earlier, needs to look after their sleep. And then once the sleep is looked after, then all the other stuff we can start addressing. Or maybe somebody just really needs to look at their sort of self-talk. They're sleeping fine, they're exercising, but they're riddled with imposter syndrome. And so it's just starting to tweak one thing at a time. And when that thing feels okay, then we can look at the next thing. And so it's building up slowly, gradually, not throwing the whole tree in a spot that you just want one tiny seed to take up space with.
Ooh, that is so profound. And I like that whole seed analogy because there's no telling how many apples are in an apple seed. You know what I mean? It just keeps flourishing, and that seed has more apples, and that seed has more apples, and things of that nature. But also, it's just those little things that we do on a daily basis that little constitutes the bigger success that we then have in our lives. Now,
Actually,
putting everything together, you did mention, you're trying to take these people off of social media and things of that nature. Now, the algorithm will start looking at, okay, so you were looking at an acne video. So maybe you've got a problem with acne. You're looking at a video with nails. Maybe you like nails. You're looking at a video with hair. So maybe you like a lot of hair. You're looking at a video with makeup. So in a space of 3 thumb moves, you've already been given all the things that you're supposed to do in one simple algorithm, and now people get confused as to where do I begin. So that just overwhelms them and things of that nature. Is that now the purpose of why you're sort of bringing people into this space where they're looking at small things, the small hinges that actually move the big doors?
yeah, I mean, even though I'm not on social media, I think that there probably are some businesses and some communities that really benefit from being online. I get that. There's always a positive and a negative to everything. And just because that's my personal opinion doesn't mean to say that that's, the law. It's just my law. But I think that that's exactly right. Is that every scroll, ad that you get, it's like do this, do this, do this, and you think it's legit, right? Because it's on social media, or it's on your screen, or it's on whatever, Facebook or email, and you think it's legit. And and so you give a piece of your soul away. Yeah, take my credit card number, make me lose those 10 kgs in 3 days, type of thing. And I think what gets missed is this. What I love also about though is what I love also about yoga and this ancient wisdom is that there's a lot of evidence based and research backed, science backed stuff that's happening now that's showing that the simple things like mindfulness, meditation, getting into nature, dialing things back to their basic simplicity, steps from green, is really what makes us happier and healthier. It's not about the stuff that we have. It's the things that we do and the people that we are, that we want to become. And, reaching out is just taking us further and further away from our journey within to find what it is that we need to be doing for ourselves. It's confusing because we're not trusting ourselves. We trust ourselves less and less because we get told such conflicting information. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how many times I've seen either on LinkedIn or in my email, you're doing this wrong, or even on YouTube, 5 ways you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. And I think particularly as women, like we think we are doing everything wrong already. And now we're being told that in popular media. We're like, oh, I just can't get it right. So I'm just not going to do anything.
Mm. But rather, looking at you, you're obviously educated, you're obviously happy in your life, things seem to be working, you're on holiday right now. You haven't seen my life. I have kids to look after. I've got work. My husband is demanding. The house needs to be looked after. I need to get TikTok recipes, otherwise my family doesn't eat. Should I keep going?
Right. Yeah. I don't have time for this, right? No. It's, and I think that there's something to be said, and this might make me very popular, is about being addicted to stress. about being addicted to the feeling of being needed, the addiction to control. I wonder how many husbands or children, if the moms or the wives had to say, you know what, is it okay if on a Sunday I take 2 hours and, go to art classes, or, maybe once a week I go to a Zumba class. Like, it's about shaving off a little bit of time for yourself. And maybe in the beginning it'll feel bad. And maybe in the beginning it'll feel awkward because you're managing everybody else but yourself. But the reality is, most of us were brought up by stressed, short-tempered mothers,
Mm.
right? Where the patience was not very long because they were busy, and they had our best intentions at heart. And but I watched a podcast the other day with Elizabeth Gilbert, who I absolutely love, and she's like, we know that women are strong, we know that we're resilient, we know that we can take on anything and succeed. Her challenge is a revolution of a relaxed woman. So, like, yes, the work is not going to go away. The children are going to have their needs. Family are going to have their needs. Whether you're sandwich generation, whether you're looking after kids and your parents, that's not going to change. We have to change, And so it's like you can't. What were you going to, like, make everything okay once everybody is grown up and left? There's always going to be something. Especially if you're running your own business or you're working for somebody that's demanding. It's about how do you're not going to stop that merry-go-round of life. We can't get off and go, just wait for me for a second. Even here in paradise, I'm on this call with you promoting myself and my business, but I'm not stressed about it. It's how we perceive those things, that we can be more relaxed about it and ask for help. We assume that we have to do so much, and there is no ways we have to do everything. No ways.
You see, there's this whole concept of self-made. I can do it. I've got my stuff figured out and things of that nature. And I think that's a fallacy which we can't actually achieve on our own. So for those that might be looking to connect and collaborate and maybe join people that are like-minded, in the way that you're doing the Bija, tell us how people can join and what exactly they can maybe expect when they're part of the community.
Um, well, I work with people one-on-one, and I usually like to work for a minimum of 6 months because, like I said, changes are slow, changes are small, and so that looks like at least a 6-month journey. And we sort of work through things as they come up. Some of the tools that I'll give and the coaching, and from next year there'll be programs that people can join in cohorts. And also in the middle of developing my first online course, which will be on the neck and shoulders, which people can run through at their own pace. So yeah, the community is building slowly, and what I hope is that it is like-minded. It's about waking up one day and going, you know what, maybe I can come first today. Maybe even just for a few hours, I can choose me and feel okay about it. One of my first clients that I worked with, when we first started working together, a few months in, she said, she fed back to me all the stuff that would make amazing marketing. She said to me that, if you had told me in the beginning when we first started working together, and you probably did, that I would be able to say yes to myself and not feel as guilty as I thought I would never have believed you. If you had told me that I would be able to take time for myself to do the things that I enjoyed, I couldn't imagine it. But now I can, and now I do. And it's invaluable. And, that for me is that's just food for the soul, because what does it mean? It means the kids have a more relaxed mom. It means husband has a happier wife. It means friends have a more chilled buddy that they can hang out with and see more. It means that her business, she's got more capacity to give more into it. It just carries on and on and on. That seed just keeps sprouting.
And what would be the best way that people can join Bija?
They can get hold of me either through my website, which is bija.co.nz. And yeah, they can get hold of me through that. I am also on LinkedIn under Rahle Dusheiko. My name spelling is on the website or your show notes. And I also have started a YouTube channel, Bija Journey, Bija Journey, which is the moment is just a few yoga sequences for people that want to do yoga, that have gone to a class and found it was too fast, or you might be too stiff or too old or too whatever it is. It's just nice, simple, basic yoga to get you moving and get you connecting with your mind, body, and your breath.
Absolutely. I'll definitely make sure that those links are in the show notes below. Now, Rahle, I want you to indulge me a little bit. I mean, obviously, you're talking yoga and you're talking well-being and things of that nature. You probably understand this also, maybe having your sort of African background. Now, where I come from, we do have somewhat of a, I want to say this without much love and respect, but it's called a rite of passage, all right, so to speak, all right, where you're called in at about 13, and maybe 13 for girls and 16 for guys. You're called in by the village elders, and then they sort of tap you on the shoulder and they tell you it's your turn to lead. And then the weeks after that, you're being taught your health, your wealth, relationships, and maybe you choose a trade. Maybe you want to be a tiler, you want to be a farmer, you want to be a builder or a roofer, whatever it is. And then you apprentice to the person that literally will teach you that sort of trade, and then obviously learn that, but you will still go back to school and choose a more modern sort of trade. But that sort of happens. And it presents somewhat of a pattern break, because you're going from kinder, high school, then the pattern break, and then you now come back. You're now able to engage in adult conversations, adult activities, and things of that nature. And I feel like in the Western world, we don't have that. You go to kinder, high school, fall in love, get married. I mean,
Mm.
whichever comes first, get married, get a job, get kids, get promoted at work, have a disease, and then die. You know what I mean? There's not that button break that literally
Yeah,
tells people that, hey, you can look after yourself. You can be two and have a
so
happier
true.
existence. I don't know. I kind of feel like Bija is akin to that without using the words rite of passage.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because I think that what that touches on are two things that I think are really valuable. The first is mentorship or apprenticeship. I think that there's something to be said about being under somebody of wisdom directly. Yes, you get business mentors these days and all that. And I'd go so far as to say that even my yoga teacher that I but did my teacher training, she's still in a way my life mentor. She's like my yoga mom. And the other thing is being taught, like you said, those valuable life skills that aren't taught in formal education, and that you can't assume that all parents are actually able successfully to hand them down. And I mean, not disrespect to parents. I think it's one of the hardest jobs in the world is to be a parent. But there's so much to life, and everybody plays this game differently. And yeah, I guess Bija is that. It's like I don't deal exclusively with women, but like you say, particularly as a woman, because we're the reproductive species, you get to a certain age and you've given physically of yourself for so long, and then you go, well, a lot of my clients are like, where am I in this? And I think that also collides with menopause and that age of when the hormones are changing gears and all that sort of stuff, and midlife crisis or whatever you want to call it. And then it's like, and then what? Like, we expected to know everything, but there's no ways that we could know always how to deal with that sort of stuff, particularly if you're going through menopause and the hormones are making you feel completely crazy. I mean, at least now we're speaking more about it. But yeah, I think like a well-being guide, a life coach could absolutely help with those sort of deep questions that women may be asking themselves and go, I don't actually don't know how to do this.
Absolutely. And it just looks like you really haven't left interactive design. I mean, you're not just interacting, creating
Life
this
journeys,
voice. You're now
life
lifestyle.
journeys.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah,
people can
exactly.
actually interact with that, or even interact with the universe through the yoga and all the wellness stuff that you're doing. So it's just you just change the vehicle that you are now getting people to experience life through. So I don't know, it's one thing that you've carried throughout your sort of career. This whole creating things and putting things together for people to enjoy it. But do you find that this has now become who you are? Your passion to really shape the environment that people exist in.
Yeah, I feel really passionate about it. It's almost like, I don't know, a creative coach in a way, because I feel like, I feel compelled. I guess the word would be compelled. I feel compelled to help people. Like if there's something that, some information or some skill or some tool or some advice that they could benefit from to make their days better, then I'd love to do that. And if it's not just about the yoga, there's so many other ways to make your life sort of work for you. Creatively think about things, have fun again. Like there's a very, very close connection between creativity and spirituality. There really is. And I think that getting to know our sort of creative selves, and I'm not talking about whether you can paint beautifully, but it's about how do you manifest in this world? How do you want to show up in this world and walk that path that you create for yourself?
Mm. No, right. I mean, it's all well and good, but does this actually work on humans? I mean, people that are, with full jobs, kids, and things of that nature. Maybe you
Yeah.
walk us through a an example of a client that you've worked with that didn't quite realize that they could do this for themselves. Just somewhat of a case study without pointing, identifiable sort of scenarios in their life.
Yeah, well, I guess it's more of not necessarily it's more of a sort of, I guess, a stereotype. And it's, a woman in her late 40s running her own business, has teenagers, has elderly parents, has husband, has mortgage, and not much time for themselves because they're the primary carer. So they'll be fetching and taking the teenagers and looking after the parents and dealing with whatever's going on with the home, and then juggling the business when there's time, and starting to deal with the beginnings of perimenopause. And so the very first thing I think that anybody needs to think about before they embark on any, and I call it a journey because it's not about a destination. It's not like you will lose 10 kgs by this date. It's more about the destination. It's about figuring out what's important to them. Because once you know what's actually important to you, what your values are, what's important to you, that's when you can start to go, okay, well, how does that apply to what's going on in my life? And then it's like, what are the different aspects of your life that you're looking at, whether it's financial or business. And then once you start to understand what's important to you, where those gaps are, what needs attention, that's when you start to go, okay, well, what is the easiest, the simplest piece of this puzzle that can happen right now? Bearing in mind, this are your time constraints or money constraints or both or energy. And so it's really depending on what that person needs and then guiding them through it. The thing about having a coach is like having a cheerleader in your corner. Like I'm always there. I'm a phone call or a message, an email away. And it's kind of like I hold the space. Like that's the thing, is I'll hold the space for them to be able to say, do, feel whatever it is that they want to. It's not like therapy where you're trying to solve something. It's more about, if there's so much in your life that you can't change, you don't need to leave your husband or your job or your life. It's just about how can you shift it to see it from a different perspective that's more sustainable and more wholesome for you to feel like you're integrating rather than constantly fighting different fires in your life. If that
Mhm.
answered your question.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, there I was thinking we now have to move, from whatever country you're in and, have to.
My aunt once said to me, and it's not my favorite saying. It's like wherever you go, that's where you are. So yeah,
Mm,
you can move jobs, you can move countries, but whatever, like your thoughts are your thoughts. It's like how you respond to things is part of your personality. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you'll probably still find the same things will trigger you, whether it's in this country or that country. So it's really about the self-work.
mm,
You can't, like, we cannot throw everything up and go live in a cave and meditate for 10 hours a day. It's about how do you integrate those things on a daily basis so that you have more resilience? What are the things that you need to stop doing? What are the things that you need to start doing? It's just about educating yourself about choices that are better for you. And they're often the most surprising, tiniest little changes.
You see, I was talking about you know, because you're on holiday right now in the Cook Islands. I was just mentioning earlier that we went to Thailand just a couple of months or so ago, and I realized something. When you're in the flight, you know, they give you the map of where you're going. The flight was exactly 9 hours from Melbourne to Phuket, and 5 of those hours we were in Australia. All right. So what
Oh,
that actually
wow.
reflected onto me is, you know, if you're going to embark on a journey or if you're going to go on a mission to go somewhere else, half of the journey has to be internal.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is my personal belief that that's why we here is that internal journey.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Rala, I can't thank you enough for the time that we've spent on the call today. But you've introduced people into your world, and they're going to be coming through. I know you've mentioned you're going to have a course and things of that nature. But what else have you got in store for us? You know, considering you are an experiential, you know, interactive design person, are we going to be coming, feeling a few things, or maybe, you know, hear sounds and
Yeah,
interact?
I mean, the dream is for Bija to be a sort of global platform. And what that looks like, I'm not too sure yet, but um, there's so many people that I meet that are doing so much good in the world because like I said earlier, well, I think we mentioned it, I'm just one person. I cannot be everything to everyone. I don't want to know absolutely everything. I only want to know what I know. And so the idea for Bija is to go forward and partner or collaborate with other people that are like-minded, that share the same vision, so that we can create this sort of constellation of well-being avatars, so can so to speak, and move forward with different ways that people can address their well-being, because everybody's well-being is different. Everybody needs to address different parts of their lives at different times. Like how you are in your 40s is going to be different to the 50s and 60s and all that. So that's sort of my bigger term, world dominating vision.
Fantastic. Now, Rada, I can't thank you enough for this incredible conversation. I know it was in between your pina coladas and you know, you enjoying your sun at the beach
just
or what.
just just water, just water for
Fantastic. But I think your story is a testament to the power of just reinvention, resilience, and just saying yes to yourself. So many people,
oh,
yeah, so many people would have curled in fetal position and not knowing what to do next, you know, after the pandemic.
done that, done
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I've ugly cried into the carpet, done that. And that's the thing. It's like what you see now is the sum of all the hard moments that have come before me and all the hard moments that are going to be in front of me. And it's just surrounding yourself with the right people, feeding yourself the good mind food, and just realizing that this is it. This is not a dress rehearsal, right? Like you get to choose this movie. You are the star of your life. So
I
make it
like
how you
that.
want it.
I like that. I like that. If only people realized how short life really is, they would actually really not sit around and wallow and doom scroll. You know, we're not here for a
Focus on
long
the
time.
good stuff.
You
No,
know,
focus on the good stuff.
yeah, there's a lot for us to do here. Now, if you've actually been inspired by Rahle's journey or the seeds of well-being have been planted inside of you right now, make sure you connect with Rahle and explore the transformative Bija journey. I will be putting all the links that she has so graciously provided us with. And if you try and reach out to her and she doesn't get back to you on time, obviously she's living her best life possible because she has said yes to herself. So don't let this be a one-time listen. I really encourage you to, first of all, maybe rewatch this episode now, knowing what to expect. Because sometimes when we watch episodes like this, you just want to get to the end of it. But now go in, pen and paper in hand, and really take notes because so much was shared, you know, that you might have missed while you're trying to get to the end of the video. But if you got everything that you wanted I also encourage you to share this video with somebody who's actually struggling to get a little balance in their
Mm.
life. I mean, we're slowly getting to the close of the year, or whatever time that you're watching this. It will be the best gift that you would have given to somebody if they can be given a gift to say yes to themselves. And I think Rahle is more than happy to help them on this transformative journey that they're about to embark on. And while you're at it, why don't you just subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show if somebody has shared this video with you, because you do not want to miss out on any of the strategies that will help you thrive in business and in life. I want us to keep the conversation going. In the comments below, tell us what you're going to say yes to immediately. Until next time, remember, your well being is your greatest asset. Bye for now.